So we're gonna, this next session is gonna be 3 different folks talking about some different cost share opportunities. So as we all know, sometimes you have the interest in doing these conservation practices or making some big changes on farm for manure storage or otherwise, but you just don't have the financial means to do it. And so there are actually a variety of different federal and state cost share programs, as well as some new kind of free opportunities from different state agencies and others that are available to help you with a variety of things. And so the first person I'm going to have come up and talk is Alex Hall from NRCS. He's going to talk about their EQIP, or Environmental Quality Incentive Program, that I'm guessing a lot of you here in the crowd have utilized in the past. So he's going to give some updates about that, as well as some of the Farm Bill changes that have happened. And as well, we've got some flyers and different things over there for a follow-up. So Alex, if you're right there.
Thanks, Nicole. Yeah, Alex Hall. I work at the local field office for USDA.
It's going to be close.
Is this?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
That's good.
Yeah. I work, the local office at Citadel Drive over by CMAR. I work with Joy Hawley. There's 2 of us there. We both work closely with the Whatcom CD staff on the implementation of conservation programs, USDA conservation programs authorized by the Farm Bill. So that's what we do, and I think the cell phone poll is pretty cool. Maybe a question, I don't know, maybe you have one like this later, but a good one would be, are you interested in implementing a water quality project, improvement project on your farm voluntarily, working with non-regulatory agencies? Yes, no, or maybe you need to know a little bit more before you could decide. That's basically what we do at our office, is work with private landowners to voluntarily implement water quality improvement projects. The main program that we use for that purpose is the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. So guess I'm just curious, by a show of hands, how many of you are familiar with the program, have heard of it, or are willing to admit you've heard of it? Anyways, that's a pretty good showing, so that's good.
There you go. Poll.
Or you could do a poll.
Are you interested in implementing a voluntary
Yes.
water quality project on your farm? Yes, no, or need more information? It's live.
Thanks, Nicole.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, while you answer that question, that is our purpose at NRCS, is to promote the implementation of water quality improvement practices on private lands. We work through a kind of tried and true planning process that's established at the national level to identify what we call resource concerns and come up with prescriptions to fix them. And locally, what that means in the context of dairies, there's been a lot of resources that have been historically allocated in this county for manure storage, nutrient management, anything that has to do with handling, distribution, to the tune of millions of dollars in this county over the years. And with the new Farm Bill that's just coming out, we're getting word that program is going to be continued to be supported here over the next life cycle of the Farm Bill. So my main message is, there are significant resources out there for livestock operators, for larger projects through the EQIP program. Specifically, if you're short on storage, or if you have other projects that you need for containment to prevent manure runoff. We do manure separation systems, distribution pipelines, upright tanks, retrofitting of existing storage. We've been doing projects to cover existing surface drainage, installation of water control structures that can contain runoff and provide subsurface irrigation. So there's a whole suite of practices that are available, and what we do is we evaluate a farm through a process, and we identify all the things that we can come up with that are going to meet the quality criteria that USDA set. And it is a fairly involved process that takes quite a bit of time. And so my message would be, if you're interested in a long-term goal, you really need to come see us so that we can explain all these finer points of what's required to get into these agreements, because it does take time. And we just found out a couple days ago, we do have new sign-up dates for this program. The first one that's coming up is February 15th. So if anybody's interested, you know, whether it be this year, next year, come see us in the next month or so, just to get a gauge of where you might fit in with our timelines. The February 15th deadline is for the statewide resources. There's going to be another sign-up deadline, April 19th, that has to do more with locally led conservation efforts. We have something called the local work group, which has specific funding, and we also have in Whatcom County the National Water Quality Initiative, which is focusing a lot of resources on retrofitting storage and other water quality improvement projects. You have to be in a specific watershed to qualify, but it does cover most of the county. So those are the two dates. Just to reiterate, you know, the sooner the better to come in and see us, so we can see if we can find something that's going to fit in a more long-term commitment. Just briefly wanted to talk about, you know, the Farm Bill being passed. We don't have any official talking points as NRCS, but you know, we're gleaning what we can from trade groups. And from what we can tell, there are going to be some changes that may make it a little bit easier when you have kind of bigger, larger projects, that we may be able to work towards progressive implementation on a project rather than have to do everything at once. We don't have our own official interpretation of that, but that's one of the things that we're seeing. Also, anybody who's worked with us, and you know, there's a cap on how much benefit you can receive during a Farm Bill cycle. With the new Farm Bill, those caps should be reset. So you know, that's another significant thing to just get out there. That you know, if you felt like you were done, but you have new issues, you may be able to, you know, come back and start that cycle over again. So that's about all I wanted to cover. There's some flyers over on the table and some business cards, just to reiterate some of the information that I've gone over. And again, it'd just be good to come in and see us early and talk to us so that we can you know, find what's a good fit. We are working at a diminished capacity right now, but we do have EQIP sign-up applications on the counter if you walk into the office. If NRCS staff are not there, at least for the next few days, FSA has reopened. Wanted to make sure everybody knew that too. They have brought in the loan staff to work at least through next Wednesday to service you know, client needs. So if anybody's got the FSA business that they needed to follow up on, try to come in during those days. And if Joy and I are not there, you could leave an EQIP application with them. So that's all I have. Does anybody have any questions? Thank you.
One little clarifying point I wanted to make in regards to the EQIP program. For those who have used it in the past, and or for those who are curious about getting in, you want a new manure tank, pipeline, separator, vegetative buffer area, a lot of those things are covered in there. Go in and get your name on the sign-up sheet. That doesn't at all subject you that in the next month you have to do these things. It can take a while to get through this system. In particular, it's changing a little bit, but you do have a requirement to get a comprehensive nutrient management plan, or CNMP, with EQIP. That is separate from your dairy nutrient management plan or CAFO plan or whatever else you have. It is very similar. There's a lot of overlap, but you are still required to have that CNMP, and that can take a while. You have to get in the queue and so on and so forth. So I do recommend that you, at least if you're curious in the program, go in so that someone from NRCS can talk to you about all the requirements and timelines and how long things are going to take to get you through the system or get you in a ranking. 20 people may ask for assistance. Maybe only a handful of those are going to get it based on the money available. So again, sometimes it's great just to get in there and talk, but I want you to know that no matter what type of livestock or crop operation you have, the CNMP would be in there. Your dairy plan and otherwise is separate. But I also want you all to know that at the Whatcom Conservation District, we can write all of those plans for you. So if you've also been confused about who can do that, how, and that magically someone will show up and do it, not necessarily, you have to request it, but know that the Conservation District can write any, all, or, singly of any of those plans for you. So I just want to, I know there's been some questions or who can do those things, so I just want to reiterate that for you. And I'm going to pass over to Chris, who's going to talk about some cost share, state cost share opportunities and some special things that are available right now.
I mentioned earlier that we had a cost share program for the waste treatment technologies. That is through the Conservation Commission, but it's also part of the DNMP process. So it does take that CNMP, but it is a State Conservation Commission funded pool. The State Conservation Commission also has a cost share program that they've split with watershed. So there's a shellfish section and a non-shellfish section. So you're in one of the two areas, which would be anything draining into the shellfish areas, or we're going to sumass drainage, there is a split. That program is a 75% cost share up to a maximum of $50,000, and it's per biennium, so it goes from July of 17 through July of 19. And that funding is available to do the similar practices of what Alex was saying, available for NRCS, but also we've been able to add waste application equipment, moving equipment that the federal program doesn't necessarily cost share on because of program rules or just a cost list that they work from. We've been able to cost share on tankers, hoses, lay flat hoses, application injectors, other things. We can piggyback on the EQIP program if that funding doesn't cover 75%, we can add to that extra $50,000 on some of those bigger ticket items to get that up a little bit higher. That specific program takes a little bit of time, but it is a shorter application process. But the commission hands out that money incrementally, and at this time, between now and July or the end of June, we will have funding rolling back to us typically because other projects are completed, and we're able to spend some of that money on these projects that are short-term, quick fixes, and then also we can sign up people for after that biennium to go for longer-term projects that take more permitting. One of the other programs I wanted to talk about, the Whatcom County has a Department of Health, Bill Angel has a tire pile cleanup. If you have a lot of tires for your silage piles that are just hanging around, we do have a sign-up sheet over here. You asked me to get a sign-up list going, first come, first serve kind of a deal. You want to get a big enough group of tires put together to be able to load a truck and then be able to bring other tires if there's others that could help fulfill a load for that. His telephone number's over there, and there's a few flyers, but he did ask us to try to get a list together, so I appreciate it if you put your name on the list, and I'll provide that to him for that cost or that program. The next one is Fish and Wildlife. We have Kim and Karina here from Fish and Wildlife to discuss a fish screen project that I think those of you with irrigation off the surface water would benefit from using. I have an example over there from Farmers Equipment as well, so that'll be available to look at.
Hi, my name's Karina. This is my partner Kim, and we're with the
Talk pretty close.
Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, and we're talking about our new fish screening program.
We won't cut into your lunch too much longer, so thanks for being patient. So fish screens are similar to foot valves, if you've seen those. They've been around since as long as our fisheries have been around, actually. And they're very common on the east side of the state. Department of Fish and Wildlife works closely with landowners and farmers over there to install them and provide technical assistance. But we're trying to implement them over here on the west side for the first time. Fish screening is required by federal and state law, but we have a cooperative compliance approach where, you know, we're non-regulatory. We just come out and work with you and find a fish screen that would best suit your needs for the amount of water that you're taking and whatnot. And then we also provide technical assistance and financial assistance, which over here, which is super awesome. We'll tell you about that. Here we have an example of a compliant fish screen and a not so compliant. Also, you know, and compliant just means that it doesn't negatively affect fish that are near the screen when your pump is in operation. Some of the components, the basic components of a compliant fish screen are internal baffling, which ensures no hot spots along the surface of the screen itself, size of the mesh, size of the holes in the screen itself, as well as an adequate surface area depending on how much water that you're using. We were able to do this project as part of the legislature's emergency orca well recovery funding. So we're focused on tributaries and rivers that have Chinook in them. And so that's the main focus for now, is to screen to help save some Chinook salmon, but we hope to implement it everywhere over the west side as long as we get interest. And we're allotted $30,000 to provide assistance for fish screens. Most of the time, we can completely front the cost of your fish screen. It's a very case-by-case basis. No one site is ever the same based on, you know, what you're using the water for, how much water you're using, what your bank is like, etc. In a few cases, you might need an HPA, which is a hydraulic permitting application. If you do need one of those, they are free, and we'll help you apply for that. But yeah, definitely come talk to us, and Karina will tell you a little bit more as well about that process of working with us. We have until June 30th of this year to assist people and spend that money, and it is a first come, first served basis. So if you're interested, come talk to us, and we can get the ball rolling. And then, here's Karina.
Okay, so back there we have a flyer that outlines what working with us would look like in more detail. So the first step would be contacting us. We have our contact information in the back. And when you do contact us, we'll ask you some basic information of where you're pumping. So what water body are you diverting from, a river, a stream, a lake? And then how much do you usually pump, and how much does your water rate allow you to pump? And then what time of year are you pumping? And then what's on the end of your pipe right now. It's okay, whatever you have is fine. We're not here to get you in trouble. We just want to know if you're using something, and if it's working for you right now, we can help you get something that is compliant, so you have that sealed stamp of approval from us. And then we would like to schedule a site visit with you so that we know what we're working with, because every site is different, and what works for your neighbor might not work for you. So we just want to get you the best screen that's going to get you the most efficiency and work the longest. And then purchasing the screen. In most cases, we will be able to purchase the screen for you and deliver it, get it to your doorstep with the minimal work for you, just for us. And then we would go over basic maintenance of your screen just to extend life of it so that it can work for the longest time. We'll be here throughout the whole event, so if you want to talk to us, we'd love to hear your questions. I think we're going to hand you off now, just because we don't know how much time we have.
Awesome. Yeah, you're doing great. Awesome. Thank you so much.